Welcome to the world of dupes, where copycat products aren't just tolerated, they're celebrated. From groceries and makeup to clothing and kitchenware, dupes are popping up on shelves everywhere. What used to be seen as a cheaper, slightly embarrassing alternative is now seen as a savvy, even stylish choice. For many, finding the perfect dupe is a badge of honor. But how did we get here? Why are lookalike products suddenly so popular and widely accepted? Are they even legal? And more surprisingly, why are big brands quietly embracing this trend that used to threaten their image? Let's break down the rise of the copycat craze and the surprising legal and business strategies behind it. Back in the 90s when I was growing up, dupes, or copycat products as we used to call them, definitely weren't cool. If you were wearing the off-brand version of something, everyone knew, and it definitely wasn't something you could hide. I remember being obsessed with the Limited 2 in middle school. It was the clothing brand that all of the girls were wearing, but it was expensive and my parents weren't about to drop all that money on clothes that I would outgrow in 3 months. So I ended up with the budget version, the stuff that kind of looked like it, but definitely wasn't, and I definitely wasn't in with the cool crowd. Now, I don't have kids, but I definitely know that this social pressure still exists. Instead of Limited 2, it's Lululemon, Drunk Elephant, and the new iPhone that everyone wants. And the kids that don't have it are getting picked on because, let's face it, middle schoolers are awful. But something shifted. Today, there's a real trend to embrace the cheaper alternative of the name brand product. In fact, in a lot of circles, finding a good dupe is seen as smart, resourceful, and even fashionable. People are sharing their best dupe finds on YouTube and TikTok with pride. There's no shame in saying, this looks like Lululemon, but I got it on Amazon for $20. It's a cultural shift. We went from trying to hide our knockoffs to fully embracing them. So what changed? The first thing that people will point to is inflation, and honestly, they're not wrong. Prices are up across the board, the economy feels like it's balancing on a tightrope, and everything just seems more expensive now. More and more consumers are actively looking for ways to cut costs without sacrificing quality. That's where dupes come in. Choosing an affordable alternative doesn't feel like settling, it feels like winning. In fact, 85% of shoppers say that price outweighs brand loyalty when it comes to high inflation. I'm definitely in that 85%. Every week, I do my grocery shopping at Aldi, arguably the king of dupes. Their shelves are lined with products that mimic the big brands in look, taste, and function, but are offered at a fraction of the cost. Do I care that my product isn't name brand? Not in the slightest. And it looks like I'm not alone. Aldi has seen massive growth in recent years, proving that smart shopping is definitely becoming a trend, and people are totally on board with the dupe lifestyle. Social media has poured gasoline on the dupe fire. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram are overflowing with hashtags called dupes or dupe finds that have billions of views. Big brands are paying close attention. Take Aldi, for example. In 2020, they launched their first social media campaign that leaned into the dupe lifestyle head-on. Since then, they've accumulated millions of views across platforms, positioning themselves as the budget-friendly alternative to your average grocery store. Interestingly, even the brands that are being duped are benefiting. Cult favorites like Drunk Elephant Skincare or Lululemon have seen an interest in searches because of the dupe trend. It's not necessarily because people are buying their products, but people are seeing the alternative dupes online. Being the brand that gets duped is a strange badge of honor. If you're the one that everyone wants to copy, then you've made it. One aspect that I don't hear many people talking about is overseas production. The reality is, nearly everything we buy, from electronics to makeup to clothing, is made overseas, usually in China, which is notoriously known for knockoff products. For decades, Western companies have been outsourcing their products overseas to save on production and labor costs. In doing so, we've handed over not just the products, but essentially the blueprints for how to make them. So should we be really surprised when Chinese factories start popping up creating their own versions of the name brand products that we told them to create? We taught them how to make it, and they're making it just as good, if not better, but for a fraction of the cost. Chinese knockoffs are nothing new, and with greater demand for dupe products, the production is only going to increase. The big question when it comes to dupes is this even legal? Aren't there strict copyright and trademark laws to protect against this? Why are lookalike products all over store shelves and social media seemingly without consequence? Well, the answer is more complicated. The legality of dupes depends on what exactly is being copied and how it's being copied. Copyright law protects creative works like logos, packaging design, or written content. Trademark law protects brand identifiers like names, slogans, and distinctive branding that signals where a product comes from. And patents protect new inventions, including some specific product designs or formulations. But here's the catch. If a dupe directly avoids copying those protected elements, say by changing the name, tweaking the packaging, or using a slightly different formula, it can often slide through the legal cracks. In other words, a product can look similar, perform in a similar way, or be marketed in a similar way, but as long as it's not outright claiming to be the product that it's trying to dupe, it's okay. That's why a $7 concealer can be marketed as a dupe for Shape Tape without any legal ramifications. Or why Aldi can sell a box of cereal that looks like Cheerios without General Mills shutting them down. These companies are carefully walking the line, mimicking just enough to be familiar and appealing, but not enough to be legally infringing. But that doesn't mean that the big companies don't try to get these products off the shelves. Recently, the maker of Chips Ahoy and Oreo sued Aldi for their very similar package design. Hi, Barbara from the future here. Now, this isn't the first time that Aldi's been sued, and honestly, I can see why. They really walk the line when it comes to almost infringing on name brand copyright. So I went to Aldi and I bought a few things, and we're going to compare the Aldi brand to the name brand version. First up, we have Poppi. This is a healthier prebiotic soda. It's gotten pretty popular, I would say, over the last 6 months. People are really talking about this. And now we have Aldi's version, Popz. We have the raspberry rose flavor in Poppi and raspberry rose flavor in Popz. And as you can see, the font, the colors, very similar. I feel like they're not really trying hard with this one to make it too different. I've had Olipop in the past and I really like the root beer flavor, but I've never tried either Poppi or Popz, so we're gonna give it a go right now. First, we will try the Poppi version. Smells kind of good. It's not really a flavor of soda I would probably go to. Raspberry rose is kind of a weird flavor, but it's not bad. Let's try the Popz and see what that's like. Ooh, I definitely like the Poppi more than the Popz. This is like a chemical fake sweetener taste, and I hate that. What's funny is there's actually less sugar in the Popz version than the Poppi. It says it only has 4 grams of sugar in the Popz, and there's 5 grams of sugar in the Poppi. So for this raspberry rose flavor, I recommend getting Poppi over the Popz Aldi version because I just don't like that chemical taste, but both companies do have different flavors, so I haven't tried any of the other flavors. They might be a little bit better, but for sure, if you're going with the raspberry rose, I would recommend the name brand over Popz. But in terms of design and packaging, this is really similar. I mean, even the name is so similar that you probably would just pick up the Aldi version and not realize that you didn't buy the name brand. So I feel like they're really close to teetering on copyright infringement with this one, but this has been on the shelves for a while, so I guess it's okay. Next up, we're going to do some sparkling waters. We have Limoncello LaCroix and the Belle Vie lemon flavor. But I would say that the Aldi version is a pretty clear dupe for LaCroix. The LaCroix font is this kind of weird script, and the Aldi version has that same kind of script font. It has sodium-free, calorie-free, sugar-free, just like the LaCroix has. Now, when I was at the store, they only had the limoncello flavored LaCroix. So they do have just a plain lemon version, which I think is actually more similar to the Aldi version. But I know what both of these taste like because I drink seltzer all the time. I actually prefer the Aldi version over LaCroix because they put more bubbles in their seltzer. I don't feel like LaCroix puts enough bubbles in their seltzer water. So I'm not going to try this one out because I already know how it tastes. I like them both. Prefer the Aldi version. The Aldi version is much cheaper than the LaCroix. I think the Aldi version is like $3 for a 12 pack and LaCroix is almost $6, so almost half the price. And I definitely think you can see what it's trying to do. They're trying to compete with LaCroix, and I think they're pretty successful at it. Next up, we have this Lysol toilet bowl cleaner and the Aldi dupe called Radiance. This is another product that I feel like is very similar to the name brand. The bottle shape is very similar. The main difference is that the Aldi one is flipped the other way, but very similar bottle design, very similar colors. We have the light blue, navy blue, and red. This is a product that you might see and think it's Lysol without even really recognizing that it's not, and that's really Aldi's intention with these products. Last up, we have Hellman's mayonnaise versus the Aldi brand called Burman's. This is another clear Aldi dupe. The shape of the containers are very similar. The only real difference is that the Aldi version is a little bit shorter and wider than the Hellman's, but they're both 30-ounce bottles. They both use the blue and yellow colors on their packaging. It's also called Burman's, which I feel like is a pretty clear copy of Hellman's. There are more ingredients in the Aldi version, which is a little concerning, but the ingredients are basically the same. Now, I'm not going to do a taste test because just eating straight mayonnaise plain is kind of gross, but I do use the Burman's mayonnaise all the time, and to me it tastes just like Hellman's, so I see no difference and no reason to spend more for the name brand version. While the average person would call these products knockoffs or dupes, Aldi would call them legal replicas. These designs are just different enough to avoid Aldi getting in trouble, in most cases. I guess we'll see what happens with the Oreo Chips Ahoy lawsuit. If the Aldi packaging changes, I guess we know the answer. Interestingly, a number of companies, especially in the fashion industry, are increasingly letting dupes slide. In the past, luxury brands were quick to send cease and desist notices to protect their designs. But lately, many are choosing not to go down that road, and there are a few reasons. Like I mentioned before, being a dupe brand can actually help you grow in popularity. More searches, more buzz, more interest. Why go after the companies selling dupes when those companies are actually benefiting you? And in some cases, attempting to fight off the competitors actually does more harm than good. It can lead to negative PR and give the dupe company even more visibility. Some high fashion brands are actually leaning into the dupe culture. Take Gucci's collaboration with Adidas, a high fashion twist on the iconic 3 stripes look. It blends luxury and streetwear in a way that mirrors the mashup of many knockoffs. Then there's Balenciaga, which has fully embraced irony with their products that resemble Crocs or their infamous IKEA-inspired tote bag. Seriously, Balenciaga, what are we doing? Instead of fighting off the imitators, these companies are actively participating in the joke. Some companies, like the cosmetics giant L'Oreal, actually own both the high-end and budget-friendly dupe brands. So they're not just competing with the dupes, they're profiting from both ends of the market. You'll find their luxury brands like YSL Beauty or Lancome at places like Sephora that target people that are willing to pay the higher price. But you'll also see their more affordable brands like L'Oreal Paris or Maybelline, often with those dupe products, at places like CVS or Walgreens. It's a smart strategy. Whether you're splurging on the high-end brand or you prefer the low-cost drugstore version, L'Oreal is still making a profit. One thing that stood out during my research for this video was generic medicine. How does that fit into the broader dupe conversation? You've probably seen it before. You go to the drugstore to buy something like Tylenol, and right next to the Tylenol, you have the store brand version. It usually costs way less, and on the bottle, it'll say something like, compare to Tylenol. Now, at first, I thought that this might be some sort of official certification because we're dealing with medicine, but this is actually just a clever marketing move. First, it helps consumers understand what they're buying. Most people don't walk around saying, I need acetaminophen. They say, I need Tylenol. The name brand is what we recognize. So by putting compared to Tylenol on the store brand bottle, it's basically saying, this is exactly like Tylenol, but it's going to cost you a lot less. Second, it's a way for store brands to piggyback off of name brand recognition without violating any copyright laws. You'll often notice that the bottle designs and the colors are pretty similar to their name brand alternatives. That's all done intentionally. It makes it easier for shoppers to visually associate the generic with the trusted brand. Legally, this kind of labeling is totally allowed as long as the comparison is factual and not misleading. The FDA has guidelines that state the required elements on an over-the-counter medicine label. The active ingredient, like acetaminophen, the strength, for example, 500 milligrams, the intended use, such as pain reliever or fever reducer, and essential info like dosage, directions, and safety warnings. Everything like the compared to line is optional, but intentional. So in a way, generic medicine is the OG dupe. Cheaper, just as effective, and totally legal, thanks to a little marketing and package design magic. So what does this all tell us? Dupes aren't just some passing trend. They're a reflection of where we are culturally, economically, and even legally. They speak to a new kind of consumer, one that's smart, resourceful, and less concerned with brand name labels. Whether it's a $7 concealer, an Aldi version of Oreos, or a much cheaper version of high-end cookware, Dupes challenge the idea that quality has to come with a big price tag. In a world where social media drives trends, inflation drives prices, and globalization blurs the lines between the original and the copycat, Dupes have found their movement and they're not going anywhere. Whether you love them, hate them, or just feel a little weird about them, one thing's for sure, the copycat craze is here to stay. Thanks for watching.